Hello, and welcome to all the truth seekers that have joined us today from around the world. I'm glad that you've decided to join this online community. For the next hour, GMDC will help you uncover new ideas that push your thinking inside and outside of your business. My name is Mark McKelsey, and I lead the people and the projects that bring you insights, shopper trends, and next practices from Global Market Development Center. This Infocast will make your lunch hour profitable by demonstrating just how the curiosity and the power of the consumer must be at the center of your strategy. In other words, the way you've done things in the past is not the way your future success will happen. Retailers and brands more than ever must be adaptive and in constant flux in order to connect with evolving populations. So, how you respond to this session is very important. Without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm coming to you live from Colorado Springs and have Boon-Long from Ascential joining us from her Boston office today. Today's Infocast will help you understand the importance of how to correctly and precisely communicate with your customers when they're in consumer mode or shopper mode, and whether they are interacting with you online or offline. Because brand loyalty is at the stake of the world of online shopping and the ever-demanding need for making the buying process more convenient, today's session will revolve around some of the best and next practices of what companies are doing to stay top of mind and do it effectively and personally. While more and more shoppers are tethered to their mobile devices, shopping experiences that happen in real time is still king when it comes to making brick and mortar relevant. Did you know that more than half of the millennials today say that they learn about products virtually first before setting foot in a store? That's not surprising, since the US now has an entire generation that hasn't experienced what stores should be like for the future, because they still see retail as a legacy model for previous generations. It means these digital natives are at risk to truly understand the full impact of what a really great retail experience has and the potential to deliver it. With all the talk about technology as it relates to engaging with shoppers, it may be hard for some to believe that it's really not all about technology. Even though younger generations are plugged into the latest apps and social channels on a continuous basis, what matters more than ever to them is to talk to empowered in-store associates that can help them navigate the store and their personalized needs. The path may start with digital showrooming, but a face-to-face is still very important. And while Amazon has mastered personalization because all activities can be tracked on their site and across platforms, that same experience is truly expected in brick and mortar with today's shoppers. In fact, the majority of millennials know that in-store habits can be tracked and widely accept that digital activity is meant to provide suggestive selling directly back to them for the sake of making their future trips easier. For all generations, up to 75% are willing to opt in to receive digital instead of paper receipts. That means retailers and brands have new capabilities to tie the process together and speak to their customers in a very personal way. For example, the Kroger Opt-Up program is a great example of how consumers are willing to be part of a digital program, submit their information, if there are simplified benefits and helpful advice that can be transferred. Whether it's about saving time, money, or introducing them to greater wellness insights, they know what kind of model can make their life better. Nordstrom understands this as well. In 2018, they finished spending a $540 million investment, or 3.5% of its sales, to making its shopping experiences more fluid and push more digital combined into their stores. As a result, Nordstrom saw a combined return average nearing a 20% increase across their websites that they manage. Today, 25% of their total stores are online. And let's not forget about social media. As a new way to inspire sales and shopper engagement, content, conversation, and community are the new forces of brand loyalty that consumers crave. So with that said, Maud, would you help our viewers know a bit more about what they're going to learn today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. My name is Maud, and I'm an analyst here at Edge by Ascential. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. We live in a world today where there's so many new points of influence, and there's so much more choice for consumers to choose from, which has made customer acquisition and retention so much more difficult. So throughout this webinar today, we're going to look at how both retailers and brands can achieve a long-term loyalty through some of these more enhanced engagement and retention strategies. And we'll do that by looking at some of the future characteristics that will drive loyalty, as well as exploring some case studies of retailers and brands who are implementing these new engagement and retention strategies, before wrapping up with a look of our benchmarking study to see which retailers are leading the way in engagement and retention.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. Before we get started and dive in, I'd like to remind our viewers that we can take questions during or after the session by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll get back to those at the end of the hour. And please remember, don't use the chat area. We will take all the questions and we'll park them until the end through the Q&A area. So let's get started. Back over to you, Maud.
Great. Thank you, Mark. So again, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today for this webinar. Before we get started looking at the case studies that I just mentioned, I wanted to first define what actually is engagement and retention, and what the current state of that is right now, and how that's transformed over the past few years, or how that will change in the future. Engagement and retention is one of the 4 winning strategies that we have defined here at Edge by Ascential. And these are strategies that we believe are crucial for retailers and brands to win in the future and to better connect with customers. Shopper engagement and retention specifically is a strategy that is meant to increase a customer's lifetime value and their long-term loyalty to a brand or a retailer. Engagement and retention can build loyalty in 2 different ways. The first way is on the consumer side. So that's to generate consumers who are emotionally and personally connected to your brand or your retailer, and they're committed to you in the future as well. The second way that engagement and retention can create loyalty is by attracting consumers to make repeat purchases and repeat trips back to your store or back to your brand page. So it's both about that engagement and acquisition area, as well as retaining them and getting them to come back to you. Now, retention is so important because the cost of customer acquisition has increased significantly over the last few years. As this graph showed, over the past 5 years, we can see a huge increase in the cost of customer acquisition, which makes it even more difficult for retailers and brands to find new shoppers, and makes it even more important for retailers and brands to work on increasing that switching cost and retaining their customers to build loyalty for the current customer bases that they already have. Throughout the shopper journey, points of influence have completely multiplied in the last few years. Whether you're in the discovery phase looking for a new product, there's so many intermediaries there for people to look at reviews from their peers or even from strangers on the internet. Shoppers can go on blogs and social media sites to get more information or find new products now, especially with the rise of more digitally native brands. On the purchasing and fulfillment front, there's also more intermediaries there where you can pay through an aggregated intermediary like Instacart or use a mobile wallet. There's so many intermediaries in between you as a retailer or brand and the end customer that's completely transforming the way that shoppers are going about their consumer journey today. And there's so much noise with all of these new touch points, and it's hard to get the shopper's undivided attention now, which is why shoppers are expecting more personalization in their communication between them as a consumer and then the retailer and the brand as well. All of this is really about how you can engage and attract customers and how you can interact with them. And they're now demanding a much more personalized experience, which is going to transform the way retailers and brands engage with consumers. We're seeing engagement move into a completely virtual space even. And in this example, this really takes it to the nth degree. So this image that you see is from the video game Fortnite, where they partnered with the artist Marshmello to host an in-game concert that was live streamed as well on social media sites. So here, this event inside a game attracted over 10 million attendees or users as their avatars going to this event together from all around the world. So having this engagement in a completely virtual space completely widens your reach, enabling you to get to so many more consumers, no matter what your geographic location is. And these types of new engagement opportunities are going to redefine consumer expectations. They're going to seek more unique and more personal engagement opportunities beyond just on retail platforms. Not only are shoppers seeking more personalization and more of those type of new engagement opportunities, but they also have more choice. First off, they have more choice in terms of where they want to shop. So on this top graph right here, you can see that both the number of stores globally as well as the number of e-commerce sites have continued to grow over the last 6 years. There's more and more places for consumers to go to buy new products, whether that's through subscription boxes or new direct-to-consumer sites. There's more competition than ever before for retailers to get consumers to come to their store. Consumers have the choice to choose retailers that offer the lowest price or the widest range of assortment for them. So that's going to completely change the way that consumers pick where they want to shop. On the other hand, there's also so many new brands emerging over the last few years. The chart on the bottom shows the penetration of private label in the US, the UK, and China. As you can see in the US, that penetration is still rising, and it hasn't even reached the potential where it could be, where we see the UK already in 2020 expected to reach a private label share of 47%. Here in the US, we're seeing a rise of new brands, including private label, but also new brands like digitally native brands like Harry's Razor or the Away Luggage. So you get competition on the brand front as well. So not only do consumers have more options of where they want to buy, but they have more options of what they want to buy. All these new choices mean that consumers are less tied down to one brand or one retailer. It's going to be more difficult to create that long-term loyalty for consumers to keep coming back to one place. Now, historically, retailers and brands have relied on loyalty programs to lock in shoppers. And in the past, they've really focused more on, the monetary or the pricing type discount to attract consumers. They've also relied a little more on convenience lately with offers of free shipping or expedited shipping. In this graph, you can see that, out of the retailers we looked at for our engagement and retention research, 80% of them offer some kind of loyalty scheme. And out of that 80%, 75% of the loyalty programs are value-based or based on monetary and discounts. Only about a quarter of these programs offer any kind of experiential rewards. The monetary type of programs are not going to be enough anymore in retaining shoppers. They're going to have to evolve in some way. And while the monetary discounts are going to still be relevant right now and in the future, there's going to need to be a radical shift in the way that retailers and brands try to engage and retain shoppers beyond just value and transactional base. So when we look at current best-in-class case studies and example of engagement and retention, we see those strategies evolve in 4 different ways. First of all, right now, or historically, we see retailers focusing on these tangible engagement and retention strategies. And this, like I said before, it's still going to be relevant, but it's going to have to transform to really be impactful and effective. Right now, the tangible type of strategies focus on discounts and also focus more on differentiating the actual product itself by offering exclusives or, private label offering that consumers might not be able to find anywhere else. This really is the most basic form of shopper engagement and retention, and it's currently the most rolled out right now, as it's the most common and it's been around for the longest. The next characteristic of engagement and retention that we're seeing is convenient. And this is where the current battleground is, where retailers are competing to create a more convenient and frictionless shopping trip and path to purchase for their consumers. So they're doing this through means like more frictionless payment methods like mobile wallets within the app, or simplified product discovery and fast shipping or subscription programs where consumers don't have to think about reordering products that they need on a certain frequency. The next two characteristics I'll talk about is what really will differentiate engagement and retention in the future. The first one of that is emotional. And this is really about connecting with shoppers on a more personal level, beyond the transactional and the retail value of what you're offering. And a lot of retailers and brands are right now connecting with shoppers through strategies like more experiential rewards or personalized communication, and also through their brand value by sharing the same brand value as their customers. Finally, the last characteristics and the highest level of engagement that you will find in engagement and retention is interactive. And this is where, it's a much more collaborative type of engagement and retention strategy, where there's a two-way communication with customers and you're getting their feedback for future product development, or using data that is being generated through all these new touch points to create a more personalized product offering for the customer. This last one, the interactive type of engagement and retention strategy, is going to be what's most impactful for consumers going forward. But this is also the most costly to implement right now, as there's a lot of data analytics that needs to be done, and also ways to analyze that data in order to get the personalization or that product development process going. But before we dive into these more future-focused examples, let's go back and take a look at the most fundamental characteristic a little more closely. For tangible engagement and retention, like I said before, this is really the most fundamental, most basic type of engagement and retention. This focuses on the classic reason on why a consumer may choose the store. It's offering the right product at the right price. So this first example really revolves around that first part, revolving around the product itself. Retailers and brands, or more, in this case, more retailers, are trying to differentiate from each other by offering more exclusive products that no one can find anywhere else, whether that's their own private label brands or through exclusive partnerships with other brands that's a collaboration or an exclusive collection that's launched just at their own store. And so Target's a great example of this, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with all the private label brands or the exclusive brands that they've been launching recently. They've launched dozens of new brands over the past couple of years, whether it be apparel brands or household care or home decor brand. And the one specifically in this picture is Everspring, which is a new brand they launched this year. It's an eco-friendly household care brand that is 20% cheaper than the comparable eco-friendly brand you might find in other supermarkets or other retailers. And this example is a really great one I wanted to highlight because not only is it differentiated and unique to Target, but it also aligns with consumer preferences and consumer priorities of sustainability, which is something that consumers are really focused on right now. So Target's really hitting a lot of points right now by, targeting what the consumers want, but also differentiating by offering a unique brand. The other side of the tangible engagement and retention strategy is on that pricing and on the monetary rewards. A lot of programs right now focus on offering discounts, like CVS with all the discounts you may get on your receipts after you make a purchase, or some retailers focus more on providing everyday low prices like Walmart. Some retailers are using their rewards program to incentivize more spending. So I wanted to highlight Sweetgreen's rewards program because of that. In Sweetgreen's program, consumers can earn $9 for every $99 they spend. And there's tiers of loyalty statuses that they can unlock the more they spend. And with each new tier that they get to, there's more benefits to it. So that incentivizes them to spend more to reach the next tier. So for example, when you reach the Sweet Green Gold tier, consumers can gain early access to seasonal menus and get invited to special events and have a whole separate concierge and customer service line for when they have any issues. So we're seeing retailers trying to build more of that type of incentive into their program. We see this with Starbucks as well, or Sephora, and that really is just to incentivize more repeat spending at the same place. So both of these strategies are, the fundamental features of engagement and retention, focusing on the product and the price, and that's what retailers have all historically focused on. Currently, what they're focused on is now on that convenience aspect. And so retailers are really trying to lock in shoppers through convenience, knowing that they're willing to pay a premium for that convenience, whether that be a more frictionless way to buy or getting your products faster and immediately through one-day shipping or a subscription program. The first example I wanted to highlight touches more on that frictionless path to purchase. And retailers and brands are leveraging mobile touch points to really do that, because consumers, like Mark was saying before, are really, they have their phones everywhere. What is more convenient than being able to do everything on your phone? And so with the Starbucks app example here, they really accomplish so many things within their mobile app. They have one of the most successful mobile apps and mobile adoption out there, with more than 16.8 million active users. And this member base grew 13% in the most recent quarter. And this app has been around for years. So the fact that they're still growing and still successful speaks a lot to the capability of their app. Within their app, as some of you may be familiar with, you can place order ahead of time and browse the menu and pick up the order at the store few minutes later, or you can just come into the store but use your mobile app to pay and gain your rewards and your points, or redeem your rewards later. You can even figure out what song's playing in that specific Starbucks store you're in right now through the app. So it's really trying to engage with shoppers through multiple capabilities and making it a much more convenient and seamless transaction. And by making it this easy to buy through your app, customers will come back and keep buying through your app and coming back to your store because it's so convenient for them. The next example I wanted to talk about is more on the fulfillment side of the convenient engagement and retention. And having fast fulfillment and convenient fulfillment is really one of the key strategies right now of retaining shoppers. Shoppers are expecting 2-day, 1-day shipping now, as retailers like Amazon and Walmart are making that the new norm. And so Amazon is really one of the best examples to highlight when it comes to fulfillment. Through their Prime membership or their Prime program, shoppers can get 1-day shipping on most of their products. They also have Prime Now for immediate, 2-hour, 1-hour delivery. And they also have even new programs like Dash Replenishment, where shoppers can automatically get their items replenished for things like ink toner or water filters. And this area of fulfillment is the current battleground right now for retailers. This is where they're competing in the most to win over shoppers. And the fight between Amazon and Walmart makes that really clear, where, when Amazon announced that they're going to make their 2-day shipping into 1-day shipping for most of their products, very soon after, Walmart does the exact same thing. And they even tout that, consumers can get their 1-day shipping without even having to pay a member fee. So this is a very fierce fight right now between a lot of retailers to provide the fastest and most convenient shipping or fulfillment option. As retailers try to make fulfillment more convenient, where they can really take it to the next level and increase retention through convenience is by locking in shoppers through an auto replenishment program. Enrolling your customers in a subscription program will really drive up that switching cost, because you're already set up in one program. You already filled out all the information, the profile you need. and it's going to increase retention, especially for these low involvement and convenience type categories. So these categories you see like OTC and vitamin supplements, or household cleaning products and personal care products. These might be high involvement purchases initially that you make, where you do your research about what you want to buy, but after your first purchase, you're just going to want to repeat that same purchase, same item again at a certain frequency. So your next few purchases or your recurring purchases after that initial setup is going to be low involvement. And this is really perfect for auto replenishment. These are ideal categories where retailers and brands can try to sign up and lock in shoppers through their program to ensure that the shopper comes back and buy the product through their site or at their store for that specific brand. Now, auto replenishment isn't only available for just these convenient type categories. We also see them in inspiration type categories, as well as those that are a little in between. So for categories like apparel or beauty, we see retailers try to lock shoppers in through things like subscription boxes, where the subscription itself is more about the discovery of the product, not necessarily replenishing the same product, but you're still ensuring that the customers are coming back to you and buying from your product on a monthly basis or whatever frequency they may choose. We even see more advanced auto replenishment strategies being innovated and evolving in the future with things like smart auto replenishment through connected devices, which is increasing retention even more, because that way, you're not getting your product shipped before you need it. You are getting it just as you need it, since the devices can tell when your inventory is running low, and it's all automatic. You don't even have to think about it. Now, so far, we've talked about what retailers are focusing on right now, but what will be the main differentiators for engagement and retention for retailers and brands in the future? The first one, as I mentioned earlier, is emotional. We talked about how engagement and retention strategy needs to move away from being purely transactional and more about creating that emotional connection with consumers. We've seen retailers and brands do this in a couple of different ways. The first one is about sharing that same values as the values that your customers are prioritizing, whether that's sustainability or philanthropy and charity. And so the Tom's example I wanted to highlight is their 1-for-1 program. And this is what their business model has been built on since the beginning, where shoppers buy one pair of shoe and they donate a pair of shoe to a child in need. They've even expanded that program even more to include, glasses and coffee, where if you buy their coffee, they donate clean water. So they've really expanded on that philanthropy program. And that allows the customers to connect with them emotionally, because they're becoming part of something bigger than just the retail platform. They're becoming part of a charity and a donation program where they can do something good for society. For retailers and brands who want to go down that route and connect on the more brand value and the more emotional basis, they need to ensure that their messaging and what they're doing is authentic and genuine. You don't want to just have a one-off scheme that doesn't align with your brand philosophy. This needs to be something brands and retailers are doing consistently, so that consumers know that you're genuine and you really mean what you're saying. Another way that retailers and brands are making that emotional connection is by building kind of a community around their offering. So Sephora, through their loyalty program, they take a step up from traditional loyalty programs and their focus is beyond just that retail transaction and rewards. So while they do have, rewards and points and all that, through their Beauty Insider program, shoppers who are members who are enrolled in that program immediately have access to an online beauty community where they can ask questions to fellow Sephora shoppers on beauty advice or tutorials. They also allow shoppers to redeem rewards that are more experiential. So you can redeem rewards for an exclusive trip for a beauty product launch, or redeem it for a beauty makeover inside the stores. And that's something I also really wanted to touch on here. The emotional part is that in-store connection. Because in the end of the day, as Mark was mentioning, while we have all these new digital touch points, one of the best ways to still engage with your consumers is through your staff and your in-store labor. And Sephora is one of the best examples of that. The moment you walk into a Sephora store, you have beauty advisors greeting you. If you have any questions, they're educated on almost all the products and categories, or they know who to point you to give you that information. When you're getting services or classes from them, they really take the time to get to know you, what your beauty needs are, and educate you on the products they're trialing on you and using in that service. And so through that loyalty program, Sephora is not just giving rewards and points, but they're really building a community that truly engages and retains shoppers to come back, because they make the shopper feel important and feel like they're a member of that Sephora community. The last example I wanted to touch on, and this is the most consumer-centric characteristic of engagement and retention, is interactive. As we mentioned before, shoppers are really looking for more of that personalization and more engagement and that two-way street of two-way communication with retailers and brands. And interactive is really the way to go about it. The first big initiative under interactive is personalization. And I'm sure you guys, this is top of mind for many of you guys, is how you can personalize. And it's not just about personalizing your emails and your communication with consumers, but it's really about personalizing the product itself. And Stitch Fix is a great case study for that. Stitch Fix is an apparel subscription box company, and they use data from the consumer's initial quiz that they fill out on the website to determine, what products to recommend to them and to send to them. But they also use data from their social media activity. They go look at Pinterest boards to see what type of apparel shoppers like. They also use data from historical feedback based on what they've sent in the past to really get the most accurate recommendation and product matching possible for their consumers. And this is all still guided by human stylists, but the data science behind it, they have a huge data science team that ensures that accuracy, and they have a point-based algorithm to match the product side and the consumer side together to get the most accurate recommendation possible and the most personalization possible. On the other end of interactive, we have that two-way communication and collaboration with consumers that I mentioned earlier. And this example of Glossier is another good case study for that, where Glossier is a beauty brand, and they first started off as a blog where consumers can go read and get beauty advice. And then when they finally launched their brand and actual beauty products, they went to the consumers and wanted to know what they wanted as they were developing their products going forward. So for this milk jelly cleanser, Glossier actually wrote a blog post about, what are you looking for in your dream facial cleanser? And taking in the comments from their blog section, they took the keywords that came up most frequently and took that to their product development team to create a product that consumers truly wanted. And that type of collaborative two-way communication is what we're going to see more often now as consumers begin to define your engagement strategies for you. With all these interactive examples, we're seeing an evolution in data. Right now, most retailers and brands are just maximizing data to personalize content or communication strategies. But future interactive retention engagement will really be around personalization of the product itself. So just like the Stitch Fix example or this Glossier example, we're really flipping around the way we're doing personalization, where it's coming from the consumers, not the other way around. And because it's so much data involved and there's a lot of this digital communication involved, the people who are doing it, the retailers who are doing it best right now are the digitally native retailers and the digitally native brands, like the ones we're seeing here on this example. They're the most agile, and they've built their business model on digital and on data. So they have a head start in being able to kind of unlock that and use that data for personalization right away. So when we look at what retailers are leading in engagement and retention, The three of the top 5 retailers who are doing the best are all pure play or e-commerce dominant players: Amazon, JD.com, and Alibaba. As I just said just right now, they're just the most agile and most adaptable, and they have built their foundation in their business on digital technology and data. Amazon and Alibaba themselves even define themselves as tech companies. So they're much further along in investment with their data strategy and how they can use their data to make more of these emotional and interactive engagement and retention strategies possible. As you can see on the graph on the right-hand side, most retailers right now, at least the ones that we have surveyed, they're still focusing mostly on that tangible and that convenient aspect of engagement and retention. And they need to do more than that. They really need to move away from giving just transactional benefits to their consumers and move more towards that emotional and interactive type of engagement and retention characteristics in order to stand out amongst all this noise and also continue to build up loyalty with their customers. When we are looking at all 4 characteristics of engagement and retention, Amazon is truly the best example of this. They've made retention so successful through their Prime membership program. And this goes beyond just, the Prime one-day shipping and the discounts you get at Whole Foods or the private label brands that they've started to come out with, which are all still relevant and important within the tangible and convenient aspect. But they've really gone beyond that and they're engaging with consumers beyond just the retail platform through services like their content streaming and partnership with Snapchat for visual search. They've really built an ecosystem around their brand and their offering. And this is touching on all around consumers' lifestyles, not just when they're going to buy something. If they're just watching TV, Amazon's a part of that. If they're Snapchatting with their friend or trying to figure out what their friend is buying and using visual search through Snapchat for that, Amazon's involved in that. So they've really created so many engagement opportunities to connect with shoppers. They even have more unique events like Prime Day that's become like a holiday now. And they've used all this curation and all this information from shoppers to open very curated stores like Amazon 4-star, where all the products in that store are products on Amazon.com that have been rated 4 stars and up and are curated for that local demographic. In addition, Amazon, through their programs like their baby registry offering or Amazon Students, they're really targeting key points in consumers' lives to acquire more shoppers or new shoppers at key decision points in their lives and build loyalty early on or at these key milestones. Through that, through all the continual benefits they offer and all the new events and features that they're adding, they continue to build up loyalty and they continue to build up switching costs. And that is how they're engaging and retaining customers the way they are now through their Prime program so successfully. Now, we've looked at a lot of different case studies and a lot of different examples, so I wanted to wrap this up with a few key takeaways and implications before we move on to the questions. The first key takeaway is about how that consumer journey is changing. That consumer journey has so many new touch points along the way now, from the discovery to the fulfillment end of that consumer journey. It's becoming more complex, and it's going to be more difficult for retailers and brands to gain that shopper attention and wade through all the noise. And with that proliferation and choice, it's making customer retention even more challenging, as they can easily switch to the next retailer or try a new brand. Right now, engagement and retention strategies are still focused on that transactional, tangible, and convenient solutions. But it needs to move away from that. And it needs to focus more or evolve to that emotional connection and interactive point in engagement and retention in order to really stand out. And right now, digitally native retailers and brands, as well as specialist retailers, are the ones who are doing it best because they are, as I mentioned before, the most adaptable and the most agile in adopting these new strategies. And lastly, the most successful brands or retailers and the ones that are have the most differentiated engagement and retention strategy, like the Amazon, as I just showed, they are successful because they've created a captive ecosystem and they're providing experiential benefits for their consumers that go beyond just retail transactions. It touches on entertainment and, education and your baby registry. So that's what makes it so successful is that it engages you with the shopper on so many different levels beyond just retail. So what does all this mean? The first key implication is that, retailers and brands really need to broaden their touch points, and they need to go, again, beyond the traditional media platforms or just their own website and the store to more innovative outlets or newer outlets like social media platforms or potentially even content streaming to drive that visibility and engagement with customers. While doing that, they also have to ensure that their messaging and their brand image is consistent and is authentic across all platforms. The second key implication is the importance of data. Retailers and brands need to build out their data analytics talent and capability in order to really enable those last two characteristics of engagement and retention that we talked about. So that emotional connection and especially that interactive aspect of engagement and retention, data is what's really going to drive that. You need data to be able to personalize, and you need to have the data from consumers back to you in order to inform your product development process. And data is going to touch on all aspects of your business. It's not going to just be important for marketing. It's going to touch on your product development. It's going to also touch on your logistics as you're, determining frequency of subscription and how often to replenish products. All of that data is going to be crucial to successfully engaging and retaining shoppers. Lastly, retailers and brands will need to expand their loyalty and program and their engagement opportunities beyond the retail environment. So just as I talked about in our last takeaway, that's what is really differentiating the best retailers in engagement and retention right now. So that's, if you want to win in the future and you want to differentiate yourself in the future, this is where you'll need to look into, is to expanding into that more experiential space and touching on other aspects of the consumer's lifestyles, whether that's through, again, content streaming or creating exclusive events and in-person pop-ups and activities to retain shoppers in a more captive ecosystem and keep them engaged. And that is the way that you can ensure that they'll keep coming back to you and come back for repeat purchases and be committed to your brand. So with that, I wanted to thank everyone for joining and tuning in this afternoon. I'll turn it over to Mark to see if there's any questions from the audience, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Maud. Thanks again for today's Infocast. We really appreciate it, as well as your partnership with our Education Leadership Council. We do have a few questions, so let's go ahead and get to those. I have one from Melissa. She's saying, Maud, do you see social selling becoming an important part of engagement and retention strategies in the future?
That's a great question. And, in the US right now, social commerce or social selling, we haven't really seen that gain much adoption yet. We see, Instagram started to get into it a little bit with, tags that retailers can use on their posts that directly links to their site, and you can buy directly through there. And we have the Facebook consumer-to-consumer marketplace, but the adoption is not really there yet. It's still not frictionless enough for consumers to adopt right now. But when we look at the potential of where social selling can go, I think there's definitely something there where maybe in a few years, that's going to be something that really picks up. And if you want to see examples of that, just take a look at China. There's so many examples of social selling there where, brands are creating brand pages on the messaging app WeChat and creating gamified experiences where shoppers can buy directly through the app. There's also a retailer called Pinduoduo who they allow shoppers to create shopping teams where they can go into group buying and buy certain products for a cheaper price. So there's definitely opportunities there. I don't think here in North America we're quite there yet, but I think the potential is definitely there.
Corey is asking, what data sources should brands and retailers look to for informing their engagement and retention decisions?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, data is going to be crucial. It's going to be so important. And I think one of the first places brands and retailers can look at is, first of all, social media. We mentioned that as one of the newer touch points that we're seeing proliferating in the space. And, social media has been key to getting consumer feedback and seeing what consumers like or not, based isn't just looking at engagement on the posts that you're putting on Instagram or Facebook, but now there's even more features like creating polls and doing Q&As on your social media sites for your brand page, where you can get the direct consumer feedback to, vote on your next product variation or product color. And that's exactly how, Glossier is kind of going through it with their product development process that they crowdsource that I just mentioned. They use their blog, but you can now vote on Instagram or use Facebook to do the exact same thing. A couple other data sources that would be valuable is just, first of all, your own ecosystem. If you're operating a direct to consumer site, that's a really great way of getting first party data. If you operate a fulfillment service like Target and Shipt, or you have some kind of strong partnership where you can get that type of information there, that could be really crucial to informing, logistics decision or inventory supply chain decision. And then lastly, connected devices, I would say, is another great source of data if you can get access to it, especially with more connected appliances that we're seeing now, connected coffee maker. You can see how often consumers in specific places are using how quickly they run through their products, or how often it needs to be replenished. And again, that type of data can really inform the supply chain and logistics decision as well.
Got it. Well, we are close to the top of our hour, and that's the end of our Q&A session as well. So Maud, thanks once again for your partnership as well as the insights that you've delivered on our Infocast today.
Great, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Back to our viewers, if this is the first time you're experiencing a GMDC Infocast, I'd like to make sure that you're aware that this session and all previous Infocast events can be viewed in the archive tab on gmdcconnect.org, along with a schedule to register for a future Infocast. We have some new ones coming up on the horizon. You can go in, register early, and have that dropped onto your calendar. I'd also encourage you to get involved with GMDC in Retail tomorrow and become a member. Today's Infocast is a small sample of what GMDC members have access to. We are a business ecosystem that helps you connect and collaborate in the GM and HBW industry. For more information, please contact me at markm@gmdc.org so I can help you find opportunities to get your company exposed to decision makers that can truly change your business. Thanks again for joining us today. We hope the rest of your week is as productive as this Infocast has been. Take care.